Hello everyone, this is Bob and Threadbare, and welcome back to Weaving Worlds. Today's video is about one of the most fundamental questions you can ask yourself when creating a new setting, or creating any sort of speculative fiction. Why are you speculating? Why are you trying to create a fantastic new world where magic is real and impossible beasts roam the earth? Why are you setting your story in the future, and why have we, let's say, invented humanoid robots and interplanetary space travel, but not invented food replicators or teleportation? Your answer or answers to this question can help you focus your efforts when designing a new setting. If you understand what's important to you and what you want to use the setting for, you'll be able to spend more time fleshing out the aspects you'll need, and you can ignore the areas that will never come up. In other words, by understanding your motives, you can save yourself some effort. I've tried to be comprehensive with the list that follows, but if you think of something that I haven't, I'll gladly hear you out in the comments section. Extrapolation. The basis of all speculative fiction, whether it's fantasy, science fiction, alternate history, or some weird mix of the three, is the question, what if? What if unicorns were real, but they can only live in pure, untouched forests? What if humanoid robots were nearly sapient, but had 3 unbreakable laws that kept them subservient to humans? What if the South convinced the European powers to intervene in the Civil War and never had to give up slavery? Extrapolation means that you take some aspect of the world that we live in today, and you think about what it would be like if it were different. A different history, different future, different technology, or even different laws of physics. Speculative fiction excels at this kind of thing since the what-if questions are built right in. So if you wonder what the world would be like if something were different, or if everything were different, then that's a great reason to create a speculative fiction setting. Exaggeration. Every dystopian novel is part of the speculative fiction umbrella. 1984, Brave New World, Fahrenheit 451, We, all of these works take one aspect of the world we live in and exaggerate it, blow it all out of proportion. Exaggeration is similar to extrapolation, but the point of the exercise is different. Extrapolation is about figuring out the answer to a what-if question. Exaggeration is about highlighting a part of society or a part of the world itself so that the work can examine it in greater detail. For instance, 1984 takes a look at authoritarian tactics, Brave New World is about the pressures of conformity and so-called civilization, and Fahrenheit 451 is about the dangers of avoiding conflict and how that can prevent you from challenging your beliefs and the beliefs of society. Now, societal introspection isn't the only reason to exaggerate. Another reason is to emphasize and underline your story beats, to give them extra emotional weight. Spirited Away is the story of a young girl who hates that her family is moving to a new town. The movie then exaggerates this story by having her be trapped in a hostile, strange, magical world all on her own. The core concept and themes of Spirited Away would have been the same if the movie had been realistic, but because it uses fantasy to exaggerate, it's more interesting, and it's easier to understand what the protagonist is going through. Exploration. The desire to explore and the curiosity to understand the unknown are universal human traits. Half the point of an adventure is to see new sights, meet new people, and go places that no one else has ever been before. However, traveling is expensive, inconvenient, time-consuming, and quite often dangerous. By creating a speculative fiction setting, you can explore worlds that never were and never will be, imagine sights that are impossible according to the currently understood laws of physics, and immerse yourself in cultures and civilizations that have no equivalent on Earth and have no required travel time. Exploration with a speculative fiction setting means appealing to that old sense of wonder and curiosity by creating a world or a galaxy full of new and interesting things. The new things could be strange landscapes, hidden cultures and magical abilities, alien races, mystical monsters, and all sorts of things that the audience would find strange and exotic. Now, something to remember about this approach is that you can cheat by using cultures, landscapes, and mythical creatures that already exist on Earth, but your particular audience isn't familiar with. For an English-speaking audience, that could include the people and geography of the Andes Mountains, Tibet, Sub-Saharan Africa, or Eastern Europe. Education. There's a bit of a trend in Japan where an author will write a light novel series about a protagonist with a very specific hobby, and because of some strange circumstances, it turns out that being an expert at the specific hobby allows the protagonist to become a hero, or a big success, or some such. And because the story centers around the author's favorite hobby, he or she will often go into great detail about the topic. You can use fiction of all kinds to educate, but it helps to use a speculative fiction setting because you can remove everything you don't need and focus on the educational aspects of your work. Shows like The Magic School Bus and Peabody's Improbable History used fantasy and science fiction to teach kids about faraway places and distant times. The Martian was essentially a fictional book about the real-life expected challenges and possible emergencies that an expedition on Mars might face. Whether you're sharing your hobbies or teaching kids, speculative fiction can be a valuable education tool. Escapism. Fiction as a whole is a form of escapism. For a few minutes or a few hours, you leave behind your regular life and step into the shoes of someone else. However, some stories hit a little too close to home, and that can make it hard to leave yourself behind. On the other hand, some stories have zero basis in reality, or at least the reality that you, the audience member, is familiar with, and as such, you can lose yourself in them completely and not even think about who you are or what problems you have until you close the last page or turn off the TV. Now, obviously, you won't get to feel the full sense of escape as the setting's creator. You always put at least some of yourself into the setting when you create it. That's just how the process works. However, you can consider the escapism factor for your audience by asking this question: do I want my audience to escape reality, or do I want to keep it real and relevant? If you want to keep it real, keep your setting closer to present-day Earth and the issues that people face today. If you want to create an escape, make your story strange, exotic, exaggerated, and as far away from reality as you can get. If you want to focus on some issues but not others, then make those issues realistic and make everything else fantastic. Another way that speculative fiction settings can help you escape is by simplifying conflicts. Real life is not simple. Actions can have unintended consequences, people can be hard to understand, relationships can be layered and go through phases, good people can do bad things, bad people can do good things, and morality in general is just a lot of shades of gray. But that doesn't have to be true in your setting. Maybe the setting's big villain is an evil dragon. Dragons are evil because they're dragons. There's nothing like a dragon in real life, so who's to say they wouldn't be evil? Or maybe the villain is a wizard who wants to destroy the world. No real reason, he just thought the world should be destroyed. By simplifying the conflict, the audience doesn't have to worry about just causes or wonder whether the protagonists are doing the right thing. They can cheer for the heroes and boo at the villains and then feel satisfied when the story comes to an end. Of course, you don't need speculative fiction to write a simplified story, but a speculative setting can help you excuse the story's simplicity. Exoticism. Exoticism is related to exploration, but it's not necessarily the same thing. With exploration, you take your audience to a strange new world. With exoticism, you can bring that strangeness back to the world that the audience knows. The Harry Potter series is a good example of what I'm describing. It all takes place in the United Kingdom of the 1990s, but if you scratch the surface, you'll find shopping alleys hidden in diagonals, wizards in the government, boarding schools with shifting staircases, and ancient forests filled with magical beasts. It's like home, but it's also exotic. You can also apply this trait to groups of people or individual characters. The setting of His Dark Materials is like England from a few decades earlier, but every human in this setting has a mystical animal that happens to be a part of their identity, and also polar bears talk and wear armor. The movie Alien Nation is set in modern-day America, but it features a group of refugees who came from another planet. Exoticism means combining the impossible with the ordinary. Total control. I've been trying to use E-words for all of the category titles, but I couldn't think of one that could work for control. A shame, really, but there's no better way of putting it. When you write in non-speculative genres, you have a lot of constraints to think about. You may be able to bend the rules here or there, like with action movie physics or the coincidences of a romance plot, but you can't avoid basic facts like New York and Los Angeles are big American cities. Gravity pulls everyone to the ground. Human-like artificial intelligence doesn't exist yet. And of course, magic isn't real. Creating a speculative fiction setting means that you can break all of the rules you want. In your alternate history, maybe the Dutch never lost their North American settlement and New York is still called New Amsterdam. Maybe your setting is a series of floating islands with no ground below them, and when you fall, you always fall towards the nearest landmass. Maybe the AI in your setting surpasses human intelligence. Or maybe magic is real, but the majority of humans choose to ignore it. With a speculative fiction setting, you can change all the facts about reality that you want, and that's not something that any other fiction genre can offer. Entertainment. Speculative fiction is fun. Creating new settings is fun. Learning about new settings and creating fanfiction for those settings is fun. Drawing crazy fantasy races and alien species is fun. For a lot of creators, there doesn't need to be a deeper meaning or a special focus. They want to have fun creating a setting and writing stories, and the only real goal is for other people to share their fun by experiencing their setting and reading their stories. If that's the case with you, then don't sweat the small stuff. Just focus on the setting aspects that you enjoy creating. If someone asks you about a detail, then fill them in if that seems interesting, or just shrug your shoulders and move on if it doesn't. It really can be just that simple. Thanks for joining me again for today's journey into weaving worlds. Please like, share, and subscribe because that raises my visibility here on YouTube. Check out my other stuff if you have some time, support me on Patreon if you have some money, and I hope I'll see you again for the next video.